Okay, so I think we can start off. Thank you all again for joining the session of the topic of IMS, Integrated Management Systems, and also with the aspect of the automotive topic. So thank you, everyone. And like in the last sessions we had, again, the session will be recorded and you will receive the PDF file of the presentation afterwards. If you have any questions, we will have opportunity after the presentation for a session of questions and answers. And we will have the chance then to talk to each other or discuss. If you have any questions in the meantime or anything else, just leave it in the chat and we will monitor the chat as well. And yeah, so Andreas, thank you very much for talking today about IMS. And yeah, please, I will hand it over. And yeah, I hope everybody gets some good insights on the topic.
Thank you, Andre. Hello together. A quick introduction. My person, I'm Andreas Redaui. I'm the founder of TopQM-Systems since 25 years. With my wife together, we started in the year 2000, and we have a lot of experience about implementation of management systems. And this is the topic of our session right now, the IMS, the Integrated Management Systems. And let us start. Let's dive in and give me a second. Could you see the screen?
Yeah, we can see a screen.
Could you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, everything is well prepared. So let's start with automotive meets ISO standard, the IMS. At first, I would like to show you quick the content. Give me a second. The content of this presentation. I would like to explain and show you the terms and the objectives of IMS, and then why integrated management systems, advantages and redundancy reductions. What are the advantages, the most advantages? ISO, HLS, the high-level structure. This is important. And the IMS core elements. My saying is, this is the engine room. I would show you a little bit the heartbeat of the IMS and the IMS in the process landscape and the turtle models. I will explain you a little bit deep in detail about that and risks and challenges during the implementation. We have a lot of experience about that. And finally, the outlook. All right, let's start. The IMS as an integrated management system based on the HLS. HLS is meaning with the high-level structure. I'll show you in a couple of pages later the details. But at first, what's meaning with that? Uniform structure with identical core requirements, the methods, and the structures. Consolidation of the risks, risk calculation, risk analysis, consolidation of the audits, the targets, or we say the objectives, reviews, management reviews, and so on, key performance indicators, the same structure, KPIs, and documentation in a single system, in one system. Then the harmonization of quality, one of the ISO standards, harmonization of the environmental safety, the occupational health and safety, and other management requirements into a common framework. The objectives. Here are the key points of the IMS objectives. Uniform rules, tools, processes. Later, I will show you a couple of examples about the process landscape and the processes. I have also prepared a good example of a process and verification methods instead of parallel system landscapes. Less documentation, one of the key points. Testing and auditing efforts thanks to common requirements and structures. Greater transparency, clear responsibilities, consistent verification, and faster decisions, factual-based decisions. And finally, holistic control of all relevant requirements or compliance in an integrated management circle. This is the key, this is the objectives. Let us start maybe on the bottom with the status quo. You could keep it in your mind, or what is the status quo in your company? Could be different ISO standards. ISO, you know, is an international standard organization with maybe in your company right now existing different standards, different descriptions, different handbooks. This is in the most companies or in some companies globally the status quo. And here you can see from the ISO standards, maybe here the environmental management system, ISO 14001, energy management system, the ISO 50001, occupational health and safety, the ISO 45001, quality, ISO 9001, sustainability standards, and so on. EQVadis, MSAQ5, and ESG standards, and so on. This is the common status quo. But the target is here in the future to have one integrated management ISO management system. How we could achieve this? Why is IMS in companies important? Many organizations operate a parallel system. I explained you the page before for quality, environmental, occupational safety, automotive, IATF 6949, and other HLS, high-level structure, ISO standards. Without IMS, there is a high level of administrative effort and contradictions, multiple checks, and duplicate responsibilities. I think with this statement, you know what I mean. IMS creates a holistic management and control model instead of isolated compliance with standards. And I hope after this presentation, keep it in your mind for your future. No parallel management systems. The objective is to have one management system. The advantage and redundancy, the redundancy, sorry, of reduction, and achieving sustainable cost reductions with that. Only one set of rules and procedures instead of several parallel ones. Uniform rules and responsibility model. Common requirements for risks, opportunities, auditing, evaluation, and measures. And also common tools, formats, forms, documentation, and so on, and verification processes or verification procedures. Centralized goals, programs, and key performance indicators. No duplication of internal and/or external audits. Uniform reporting to all your stakeholders. And here we can talk about cost reductions, definitely. So I would like to explain you at the beginning, I said the ISO HLS high-level structure. The IMS system based exactly on this high-level structure in the new ISO 9001 revision we expect it next year. It calls, or in the draft right now, it calls, the new wording is harmonized level structure, not anymore high-level structure. So the harmonized level structure is a uniform structure that is used in various process-oriented ISO standards. This is important to know for management systems. It promotes a common understanding by providing a similar chapter structure. The elements or the 10 chapters from all the ISO standards are the same. Here on the left side, here is for you, if you have interest. The ISO organization is globally, the headquarters in Switzerland, and they produce all these ISO common standards. For example, for the management systems, all the ISOs came from the Switzerland ISO organization. Here I would like to explain you a little bit the chapters. I talked about the chapters of the elements are the same, based on the same elements, and this calls the high-level structure. This is meaning with that. For example, usually there are 10 chapters, but the most important chapters for your documentation, it starts from number 4, context of the organization. You have to describe your scope and your intention, your product, your service, and so on. Number 5 is leadership. This is the top management, what is their responsibility in the management system. The next is the planning of the operation, planning of the administration, planning of the resources. Number 7 are support. This is the support chapter. It means what do you need for support processes and responsibilities. And number 8, this is the engine room. This is where we make money. This is operation. This is mostly depends on your business. This is the production. And number 9 is overall the evaluation of your performance. And number 10 is improvement. Here are the sub-chapters underneath. I do not explain everything, but you can see most of these headline chapters, number 4 to 10, and the sub-chapters here mostly are the same requirement for the different ISO management systems. And this makes possible to have to put it all in one system. Here the operational, the monitoring measures, KPIs, internal audits, and management assessment or management review here. This is one of the important points. And the improvements, continuous improvements, is in the chapter number 10. So here you can see this header are the same, have the same structure, the high-level structure, same chapter, then chapter numbers of different ISO and the IATF 6949 also standards. Now you know what is meaning with the high, or I would like to say the harmonized level structure. Oh, a bunch of requirements I see here. What's meaning with that? I would like to explain you and show you the common core elements. You remember the engine room of the IMS. We start with the IMS system. It's based on the ISO high-level structure, what I explained you in the page before. Then the context analysis of your company, the scope, internal and external issues, claims, problems, and so on, challenges. And you have to consider and to evaluate your interested parties, or we can also say the stakeholders, your customer, your employees, your supplier, the laws, what you have to consider in your country or in your state, and so on. The interested parties. And the next point is process-oriented management with a uniform turtle model. I explain you in detail next pages, the turtle model, but the next is the same risk and opportunity management. This is, a regulation is more formal, but you have to analyze based on your service, based on your products, based on your production. What are the risks and opportunities? To consider the expectation of the interested parties of the stakeholders. Then the corporate planning and objectives. We can say cover in total. Uniform and clear document structure. For all standards in one system. One audit program. Uniform key figure structure. The KPIs, we can say, like a cockpit chart. Finally, one training program. It depends on your structure and system from HR or operation, which kind of trainings it's meaning with that. But it's possible to have over the top one training program for the different ISO standards. One management review. You save a lot of time, a lot of different evaluation documents for the management review of different ISO standards, and please consider also for the IATF 6949 for the automotive management review is also considered. And in this case, you have one management review. This makes, believe me, quite easier. Action management and continuous improvement. This is, you remember, the last chapter, number 10, continuous improvement process. And one certification body. This is important. You can save really a lot of money. In some or most of our customers, I recognized they have different standards, different certificates, different handbooks. And believe me, some companies have different certification companies. This makes no sense. You should have one certification body with one organization. So, but what I would like to show you the next pages for the uniform clear document structure, see the document pyramid. And the next here is the KPIs. Here I have prepared also a page for you, the KPI pyramid. And finally, what I mean it's important, see the certification rules. Especially for the IATF 6949 is this really important to consider that. If you have one management system, if you have an IMS management system. So, ladies and gentlemen, here you can see these are the engine room, the heartbeat of IMS. So look about these examples. I promised you here is a good example for document structure. If you have a holding and sister companies underneath. Let me explain a little bit. For the documents, the document structure, we begin here at the top. Layer 1 is group level requirements and standards. For all sister companies, the same. They should have access to that. Then on the holding level, layer 2, the IMS holding requirements, the IMS structure, your common for all sister companies valid policies and document management system, checklists, templates, and so on. This is on the holding level. Here on the left side you can see, and the layer 3 is all records and documented information you can store in the layer 3, but these are here, layer 1, 2, and 3 is on the holding level. And on the sister company, the local plan-specific structure of the documents, we call it the layer 4, plan-specific requirements, process map, process description, procedure instructions, and work instructions, and so on. And also layer 5 are space to store the plan-specific records and documented information. This is the important document pyramid, and if you are working in the automotive industry, I would like the T6 conformity or the document security, the data security, and so on. This is a good tool, the T6 tool conformity, maybe in the easy level AL1 or AL2 or AL3. This is up to you. But all the document structures and the document storage and the document organization should be based on this data security T6 tool. This is a recommendation, it's not a requirement. But anyway, you have in every countries, every region, every states, you have your laws about that globally. The next, I would like to show you a common structure of key performance indicators. The structure, the hierarchy, the systematic here. You should also create a KPI structure. We start again by the holding. finance KPIs, holding specific plan summary, what I told you, the cockpit chart, the final one-pager. Then operation. This depends on your structure. It could be driven by the holding or local specific, the operation KPIs, plant monitoring and reporting, usually quarterly or monthly reporting. Then on local plant specific are the plant functional KPIs, plant specific and support functional KPIs. And on the bottom are the process KPIs. You know, every process should have a kind of a measuring system, the performance, and you measure it, each processes within KPI, plant specific and operational KPIs. This is only example, this is a recommendation, but believe me, this works. Based on our experience, and we had a lot of certification procedure based on that. Successfully achieved. So these are the KPI pyramid, and I would like to explain you in a simple way the new IATF 6949 rules, 6th edition. It's quite new from this year, beginning in the spring this year. The mapping, sampling, and skipping rules. These are the certification rules, and this you have definitely to consider in your new structure. Mapping. What is meaning with mapping? All location and documentation of all IATF relevant sites, functions, interfaces, and so on within the corporate scheme or schematic. Objective is a clear system structure, unambiguous responsibility, and full auditability of entities, including central management functions. This is the mapping rule. Next is the sampling rule. This is much more easier. If you consider the mapping, the sampling should be easier. Risk-based selection of the sites. It's not necessary to audit all sites. This is the advantage if you have a multi-site IMS structure. And last but not least, the skipping rules. This is skipping. It means if you have 4 or 5 companies in one IMS system, then it's possible to skip every year 1 or 2 plans. This is really advantage, and you save a lot of money. And this is what I mean. You should have one certification body and not 2 or 3. You save at this point for the mapping, sampling, and skipping rules definitely a lot of money. Audit preparation, and so on. Now, I would like to explain you the integration of automotive requirements into the IMS. What's happened with that? An IMS enables the complete integration of industry or automotive, industry-specific automotive requirements. Please have a look here, especially AIAG requirements or AIAG standards, IATF 6949 standards, and we can combine and say all the automotive core tools. All these standards and requirements, laws, the rules, standards, regulations, and policies, we can say these are compliance. And if you have one system, one IMS system, then you could do or assess a compliance audit for all and you cover all these rules and compliance in one system, in the IMS, in one assessment, in one compliance check, in the integrated management system. IATF 6949 with the focus of should know risk prevention, product safety is important in every country, traceability and the supply chain management. The AIAG core tools such as APQP, the FMEA, SPC, MSA, PPAP, and claim management AD as a uniform methodological basis. Yeah, I know I forgot the new one, the control plan, some miss here, the control plan CP. Yeah, this is a new handbook site last year, since last year. AIG specifications with common processes, forms, and verification structure. And for sure, CQI self-assessments as a standardized effectiveness check. And uniform process and documentation logic for customer-specific requirements, customer regulation for the law, or from the OEMs or the bigger tier ones. This is the integration of automotive requirements into your IMS system. And on this page, I would like to show you, and I promised you to explain the process landscape, the process map. Here, it's only example of a company, centralized, standardized process map for all corporate functions in one process map. Leadership, value creation, and support processes. Here on the top, you see the leadership processes from the top management, and here the main process or the core processes, or here is described with value creation processes. And on the bottom here are the important support processes like HR, IT, maintenance, and the IMS. Here is split it in quality and environmental, but you know the target is to have one management system. This is a good example for all corporate functions to have in one process landscape. And now we go to the description of each process, of each processes. And this you can do, the process description, according and based on the turtle model, like here you can see. The advantage is with this turtle model, I go one page back, you are able to describe all single processes in your company in the same systematic. And what is the backbone of the turtle model? You can see here the key features of a turtle model are the definition of the process owner. Each processes have their process owner, their own process owner, their own process responsibility, it's better saying. And for each processes, you have described the input and the output. What is the expectation of the output? What you deliver in this single process? You have to consider the resources here on the top, the personnel and material resources, The process documentation, the work content is here, procedure instructions, work instructions, process flow charts, and so on. Control plans, quality plans, and so on. And here on the right bottom leg is defined the efficiency performance indicators. This is a requirement of the ISO and IATF standard, the KPIs. How many KPIs you defined for this process or for the output? It's up to you. It's not really, the numbers is not defined. It's based on a risk evaluation. And here on the red frame are described of each processes the description of the risks. You have to consider the risks according the ISO standards, according the quality, according the communication in your company, according the occupational health and safety, according the energy, according the hazard substance, safety issues, and so on. You have to consider all this here in the process risks. Here it's good described, the summary, the interfaces, communication, the records or the evidences, what you need. So this is a good example and an overview about the description of according to the turtle model. And before I show you the process landscape, what is necessary or good to have in your IMS documentation. Central process map for all corporate functions. Process design based on the turtle model. And appointment or agreement of all process owners. Harmonization of the processes. Here only a couple of examples. It's not necessary to explain you in detail, but here are the management, controlling on the top management processes, the leadership processes, IMS, ISO management systems is a process, HR, procurement, and so on. But what I would like to show you here is all the processes based on the process map. Each individual process is described using the same structure, the same systematic, the turtle model system. I think now it should be better, you have a better view, a better clearance about that. Now I would like to explain you a single process. It's only an example. I would like to show you the important input and output analysis according quality, according environmental, OSHAs, energy, and so on. In the input-output analysis, the influence factors you should know, you should analyze, of an applicable ISO high-level structure standard must be considered for each process. This is an example. You see here the turtle model, like input and output, and electroplating, the coating. Input-output analysis according the IMS requirements, and here we start with the input. If you have a management system or certificate about 9001, ISO 14001, these are only examples, 50001 and 45001, or IATF 6949, then you have to consider for each processes the input, the influence factors of those requirements. And the output, you have also to consider the influence factors what is the output of those standards? And here, the input and the output, I have a good explanation for you, examples, what I mean with that. The influence factors of the quality ISO 9001 for the input is work instructions, procedure instructions, control plan, drawings, customer requirements. I think you know what I mean. You should agree with that. What are the influence factors for environmental, of electroplating and coating, environmental standards, process water, of the coating, bath, what you need, what is the influence of the 50,001, energy or gases, what you need, what is the input for safety, hazard substance, corrosive substance, and so on. You have to handle with that. And what is the output? And you have also influence factors. The output is for quality approved OK parts. The output of 14,001 waste materials, emissions, what is blowing in the air. You have for the 50,001 energy management system, the energy and gas consumption, what you need for this process, and hazard and non-hazard substance of or waste of the safety standard. This is also a good example for the input and output analysis based on this ISO standards requirements. And do not forget, these are not only ISO requirements, these are also covered the laws in your country, in your region. The compliance, also the customer requirements. So now we dived really deep in detail from the process landscape of the turtle model, and now the example of electroplating coating based on the laws, compliance, and ISO standards. I hope you understand a little bit what is the core, what I mean of the IMS processes, process landscape, and the responsibility of the process owners. So we have also to consider the risks and challenges during the IMS implementation. We have risks and challenges. I can explain you, or I have so many experience in the last couple of years during the implementation of IMS with our customers. Based on our experience from TopQM-Systems, the most risks and challenges are lack of support from the top management. They are not standing behind you in any cases. This is a challenge. Unclear responsibilities, rules, and authorities. The focus is here on the process owners. Low level acceptance or motivation, the awareness of IMS among the employees. Incomplete or missing gap analysis, a clear basis to start with the IMS to know which kind of documents are existing. The gap analysis, you should start with those of existing systems or existing documents or existing certificates and contracts and customer expectations. Compliance, yes, of course. Risks associated with interfering with existing certificates and audit relevant structures. And resistance due to change in established structures and habits. You have focus and consider this last second point here. You have to consider the existing certificates if you implement the IMS system. The existing certificates, if you hit them, you have to consider and to make sure the 3-year regulation and the certificate circle you do not affect too much. Otherwise, the certification auditors are totally confused about your new system. You have to inform and cooperate with the certification company about that. Lack of resources for transformation, for the audit programs. You remember one audit program, and for some trainings. Uncertainties in the interpretation and integration of automotive specification. Customer-specific requirements, APQP, PPAP, the automotive core tool, CQI, and so on. IMS, it's a challenge if you consider the risks. If you know and consider the risks. So, ladies and gentlemen, the outlook of IMS. What's happened with that? IMS as the basis of transparent and robust corporate management, efficiency, resilience, and risk reduction to bring it down. Potential for standardization, digitalization documents, controlled KPIs, monitoring your lessons learned, knowledge, management audit, the knowledge management and audit management. Yeah, we can say it's a restart. It's a chance for digitalization of your documents. Use a basic platform for energy management and sustainability reports, supply chain security compliance, drill down into your supply chain for purchasing, cost management. It's an important point, and integration of a global AIAG requirements in your companies, in your sister companies, in your holding. Last but not least, if you still operate separate management systems, and if you aim for an integrated solution, we can support you with proven experience from TopQM-Systems. Thank you very much for your attention, and I hope you enjoyed this presentation. Automotive meets ISO standards IMS, integrated management system. Thank you for your participation and attention. Now we have time for Q&A, for your questions and answers. If you have questions, please let us know.
Thank you very much for the presentation, and I've enabled the microphone, so if you want, you can raise your question. And I think we have one comment here from Anastasius. Thank you very much. And I think the topic is that the IMS has been managed and emphasized and not quality management only quality management, as I read it, as quality management being only one part of an IMS. But IMS is more than that, including environmental aspects, occupational health and safety, energy, and things like that.
We can say all process-oriented ISO standards.
Yeah, exactly.
It's cover all. Is this answered your questions, Anastasius? By the way, hello, Anastasius. Nice to have you here.
Hello. No, it's not a question. It's what many companies they speak about integrated management system, but they mean the quality management system. But integrated management system is not just the quality management system, or the quality management system is not the EMS. And this in German not so understand. And many companies, I see that they say quality management, they have to do the healthy, the environment, the energy management, all the management systems.
Yeah.
But it's not right.
Anastasius, I have one hint about that. If you have only a quality management system based on ISO 9001 or IATF 16949, we could also talk about integrated management system, because if you have not other certified systems, this is not a question. You have also to consider the compliance and the laws. And this you could bind it for all your sister companies from the holding in one management system. And then we can talk about also from IMS.
Yeah, yes. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Other questions?
I think we have one here. The question is, wasn't a documented certified management system or integrated management system be intended primarily to seek a reversal of the burden of proof in event of any liability? So, and as I understood the question, the burden or the reversal of burden of proof, so the
Beweislastumkehr.
Beweislastumkehr.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Exactly.
Yeah, this is a good point. I think you meet with the system, with the internal requirements from the top management and the record as the evidences. I think you meet exactly that.
So yes, exactly, yes. And I agree with Anastasius only partial, because I think, yes, he is partially right that the IMS is not only the quality management system, but the quality management system, in this case, the ISO 9001, is the main and the basic IMS. Without this main and basic IMS, let's say an additional IMS like quality management, environmental management, and work protection or whatever is not possible. You need, firstly, the ISO 9001 as an integrated management, and without the ISO 9001, any others is not possible to be certified, for example.
Andre, you could answer.
That is a good point from this year's experience of my project, of our project, is we did, there are different reasons. We did certified a big company with many locations worldwide for ISO 14001 before 9001.
Ooh, wow, interesting.
And it had different reasons. It was some locations were already certified. It made the most sense to start at some locations with 14,001 first. So it had its reasons. However, the experience from that is that it doesn't matter if it's 9001 or 14,001. If you implement some core elements, such like creating process descriptions, turtle diagrams, things like that, implementing core elements, of course, with the lens, with the view on environmental requirements, KPIs, for example, environmental KPIs, procedure instructions, spill leakage instructions, something like that, with that view. But we've established a foundation of having organized structured document layers where they put their KPIs in it. Of course, it was environmental KPIs first, but it laid a foundation that 9001 quality-related aspects can be implemented. For sure, topics of claim management, for example, AD filing and things like that. These are the core elements of the 9001, but it can be added now to our whole core of the IMS structure out of the quality management perspective.
That's
but with
also a possible approach. Yes, of course.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That was our learning there. But you're absolutely right. If you start from scratch, the best way, the usual way, is to start with ISO 9001. For sure. Yes, correct.
Thank you, Andre. I couldn't not better explained.
Many thanks for that.
Other questions, ladies and gentlemen, right now here in this forum?
Not for now. Thank you.
I had something that we may have touched or covered now, but something in the hierarchy and the pyramid from KPI structure and layered document structure. My question would be a bit for the audience, maybe also how then the different views of 14,001 or 9,001 could be integrated into that overall KPI and document layer structure. So in the view of 9001, how does this could help to have this document structure and KPI structure?
So maybe in this audience, you could share your experience.
Is it possible that you go back to the hierarchy, to the pyramid, to the picture of the pyramid? So this was something we probably already touched with Rainer's question, because here saying we have a layered structure, and now in the view of 9001 or 14,001, right? The question is the elements and the requirements for each individual standard will then be implemented depending on which layer the requirement fits, right? So it means that if we have a requirement of a process for claim management, it might make sense to have in layer 4 a plant-specific claim management, but in most cases, maybe a layer 3 holding specific or overall specific claim management from the topic of ISO 9001. Now, if we go into 14,001, maybe a record of an incident, environmental incident, or 45,001. So the question was, by viewing this pyramid from the different viewing angles of 9001, 14,001, 45,001, each one brings different requirements, but somehow all can be fitted in this document layer, right?
Exactly, yes. I really like to let's say to combine these different requirements to one standard. So I would not open up, let's say, a standard for ISO 40001 and one for ISO 45001. So possibly this example as a claim management should be combined, and also, let's say, the supplier evaluation on a yearly platform should also, let's say, combine all such contents if possible. Okay, the possibility is mostly the chance and also sometimes a problem.
Yes, and I think to that point, a good example is, at the moment we were kicking off IMS project, and we talked about the document overlay. So like you said, if we have one specific document, we include environmental quality aspects, and safety aspects and things like that. And we came to the conclusion at this specific company, we had about 80% of overlay. That means a universal document for example, claim management is appropriate.
Only for example, if you open up in your mind a QAA, a quality assurance agreement, in this kind of agreement, there's also everything included.
Yes,
there's also really absolutely everything included. Not only the quality management system requirements to the supplier or to whom else, also let's say any kind of environmental aspects or code of conduct or whatever. So this is a possibility how to, let's say, combine a document with all of the requirements.
Just like the company policy,
exactly.
Company policy, for example, right? We don't have a quality quality policy anymore and environmental policy. We have a company policy,
Yes,
including
exactly.
maybe code of conduct aspects as well. So
why not? Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think also certification, certifying auditor will accept this because
yes,
it's everything in.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And this is what I meant with about 80% overlay. For example, exactly these documents you mentioned, we can integrate every aspect of it. And then again, my example with the claim management, for example, some elements are standard specific, but at least we have almost anywhere 80% of overlay. That's
Okay.
what I wanted to say.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, but it's a good point, and not. I feel that not many people are exactly looking at this how you said. If we have one document, a policy, if we have a assurance agreement, something like that, just integrate the aspects from different departments. And I think for the health and safety topic or even environment, it isn't even a matter of being certified. You should include.
So only for example, our company is IATF certified, and we've got more than, I would say, 90 procedures. Okay, so that means for global procedures. So that means we cannot add additional procedures for different, let's say, certifications. That's impossible. This will so the system will explode.
Yes.
So in this case, for the almost of our procedures, we have to have a look which kind of aspects for different, let's say, references of any kind of certifications are included. That's it.
And going even a step further, if you have a multi-site certification, for example, some plants maybe have a similar way of doing similar procedures, but at some point it makes sense just to combine procedures. Some plants need to change a bit of their approach on a different process, but if you can get all the plants in the multi-site structure following one same procedure on a specific topic, you can also kind of avoid overlay in having
yes, sometimes because sometimes you've got also, let's say, different legal aspects in different countries. So in this case, if a country has a little bit, let's say, similar approach but not exactly the same, they should have the global procedure as a reference and doing their own local procedure. That's okay.
Yeah. For that we have created environmental handbook or a safety handbook based on the holding level, like a policy, with a link to the local requirements and local laws. And the local laws, there is a documentation requirement from the plan-specific document level.
Yes, exactly. That's very good. That's very good. Really good. That sounds good.
We have developed a bunch of policies for the holding where avoid the overlapping of the requirements. It's only one policy, maybe 10, 12 important policies, and then you can drill down to the plans, the link to the layer 4 plan-specific documents.
Makes everything a little bit easier, absolutely.
Yeah. And one example I want to share or to say is also yet now only in the matter of being audited and being compliant with ISO audits, is that sometimes I see in my example is always or my sentence is always as specific as necessary, but as generic as possible in the process description or in the depth of what you what companies define in their process descriptions.
Exactly.
The example is always if a company defines their purchasing of toilet paper in a policy or in a process. I mean, they could do this. If then you will be audited against your internal procedures and someone slightly varies from this policy, then you have a non-conformity here, which is completely unnecessary because that depth of purchasing that is not necessary. So always be looking at be only specific as necessary, but be generic as possible. And less is sometimes more.
Okay, thank you for that discussion.
Okay.
My question is in the audience, any other comments, questions? or experience about that, about IMS?
At the moment, I'm satisfied.
Otherwise, I think, Andre,
that's fine.
we can close this audience.
Mm-hmm.
If there are any other questions occurred, you can use the chat, or you have our contact data, and then you could let us know.
Exactly. So thank you.
Andreas, would you do me a favor? Just a second. Would you do me a favor and send me your mail address? Because I will send you, let's say, a possible aid or aim as a forum. I will send you an address. Possibly you know it, but I think it's not something for the chat here.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
It's in the chat. I've put the email
Okay,
address in the chat.
I see. Perfect. Thank you very much. You will get the address soon.
Thank you very much. And the next session, the next training will be APQP control plan at 1 p.m. I'm looking forward to meet you there, and have a good noon and a lunch break, and see you later. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you together. Bye-bye.